Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Nessie and the Viking Gold by Lois Wickstrom, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1, New Friends and Old Acquaintances. As Craig and Linda lifted their suitcases from the trunk of the car, their father said, "This year, stay out of the water." "No more Nessie hunting," added their mother. "You nearly drowned last year." Sweet breezes blew the mist from Loch Ness, and the scent of wildflowers wafted across the yard. Linda remembered the day she first saw Nessie had smelled like this. A curly-haired girl, about 12 years old, stepped out of the shed beside Mrs. Carmichael's bed and breakfast. She said, "I'm Anna. Did I hear you mention Nessie? My dad's here looking for Nessie. He wants to tape record her noises with his hydrophone." "Your dad is too old to be looking for Nessie," said Craig's dad. "I agree," said Anna. "Parents can be so immature." Linda looked at the girl. She was pretty. She wore makeup. She was everything Linda hoped to be. "We saw Nessie last year. She sang to us," said Linda, hoping to impress Anna. Anna batted her eyelashes at Craig. "Did you see Nessie too?" "Maybe I did, maybe I didn't," said Craig. Linda's brother was 13, and he thought he knew everything now that he was a teenager. He stuck his hand into his pockets and did his best to pretend he was ignoring Anna. Mrs. Carmichael, holding a pair of warm gingerbread cookies, came out to greet them. Craig grabbed one and mumbled "thank you" with his mouth full. "Welcome back to Loch Ness," said Mrs. Carmichael. As Linda took a cookie, Mrs. Carmichael turned to Anna. "One of my favorite families," she explained, holding the plate just out of Anna's reach. "I don't bake cookies for just anybody." She was clearly teasing. And then she moved the plate towards Anna. "Your family, now too. Have a cookie." "You'll ruin their appetite," said Craig and Linda's mother. "There's plenty to do here. Don't worry. They'll work up an appetite," said Mrs. Carmichael. "I've told them to stay out of the water," said Craig and Linda's mother. "No more Nessie hunting." There's lots of other things to do at Loch Ness," said their dad. "They can go to Urquhart Castle and look for ghosts." "Not ghosts," exclaimed their mother. The aroma of warm gingerbread drew her closer to the plate. She took a cookie and bit the gingerbread man's head off. "These are good," she said, taking another. Mrs. Carmichael chuckled delightedly. Their dad took one too. "I don't care about ghosts," said Anna, still holding her cookie uneaten. "Portia is coming to sing at your Urquhart Castle." She performed a mock swoon, making her long curly hair sway gracefully. "Don't you just love Portia?" Linda saw that Anna was looking at her, expecting a response. Linda didn't know what to say. If she said she loved Portia, Anna would expect her to know Portia's songs. But if she admitted she didn't know Portia, Anna would think she was a baby and never be friends with her. "I've never heard of Portia," said their dad, "but she's got to be better than Nessie. She won't be luring my children out into the loch." "Portia is just the best singer," said Anna. "She's so wise. She knows all about life and love and everything. You've got to hear her." "Have you got any of her music with you?" asked Linda, fingering a braid and wondering how her hair would look loose like Anna's. "Sure," said Anna, "but you haven't lived till you've been to a concert." "Let's all go to your quaint castle and hear Portia," said Linda in her most grown-up sounding voice. "If she's like most teenage pop stars, I'm sure we can hear her right here," said Linda's mom. "There's no need to buy expensive tickets and go across the lake." "You've got to go hear her up close," insisted Anna. "You feel her music through the ground and bouncing off the walls. You'll have to wear earplugs to protect your hearing. It's a full body experience." "We've got to go," said Linda, hoping for once her parents would be reasonable. "Craig, Linda, go put your suitcases in your room," said their mother, "and unpack." Craig grabbed his suitcase and hurried into the B&B as if he couldn't get away from Anna fast enough. Slowly, Linda pulled out the handle on her suitcase and began rolling it past the daisies and violets in the backyard. She really wanted, an excuse to stay and talk with Anna about Portia, but it was better not to upset her mother, or her mother would never let her go to Portia's concert. As she closed the door behind her, she heard her mother say, "I'll thank you not to put ideas into my daughter's head, young lady." "Seems to me," said Anna, "that she's old enough to think for herself." She paused. "And so is her brother." Linda didn't like the sound of that. Was Anna actually interested in Craig for a boyfriend? Linda wanted Anna for a girlfriend, someone to teach her to put on makeup and to tell her about important singers and to help her become a teenager. Other 10-year-olds dressed like teenagers, but her mom refused to buy her clothes or even a tube of lipstick, and her allowance was so small to buy anything truly cool. On the way to her room, Linda walked past the kitchen. There on the counter where she left them a year ago was a bowl of the purple singing flowers. They'd multiplied while she was gone. Or had Mrs. Carmichael found more? Linda could hear them humming softly in the sunshine that streamed through the backyard window. She remembered how the singing flowers had let her breathe underwater when she and Craig visited Nessie's grotto last summer. She had picked them as a present for Mrs. Carmichael, and they had saved her life. She walked quietly up to the singing flowers and kissed them. One of them seemed to kiss her back, and she heard them sing. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot, an old lang syne? Wasn't that a New Year's song? She'd have to ask Mrs. Carmichael. Through the window, she heard her father ask Anna, "What does your father do for a living?" Anna answered, "He works in an office selling stuff." "He and I will have to chat," said Linda's father. She could hear her mother shuffling her feet like she did when she was bored. Linda knew she had to get her suitcase to her room before her mother found her in the kitchen and yelled at her for dawdling. Mother had to be kept in a good mood if there was a chance to go to the concert. Linda dragged her suitcase to her room. She thought about putting her clothes in the dresser, but she had to talk to Craig. They had to find a way to see Nessie again. Craig had avoided talking about Nessie with her ever since she told her best friend about their adventure in Nessie's grotto. Her best friend blabbed to her big brother, and then it was all over school. Craig the monster hunter. Nobody believed Linda, but Craig couldn't lose the nickname. Of course, Craig blamed her for all the taunting he endured. He'd be starting a new school in the fall, and he wanted to make a fresh start, but that didn't mean he couldn't see Nessie again, didn't it? She rolled her suitcase beside the dresser. Then she looked in the mirror to be sure she didn't have cookie crumbs on her teeth. Craig could be a horrid tease. Her teeth were okay. She tugged at her braids, wishing they didn't look so little girlish. Then she went down the hall and knocked on Craig's door. "Go away," shouted Craig. "It's me," said Linda. "Girls are stupid," said Craig. Good, thought Linda. At least he's not interested in Anna. "You need my help if you want to see Nessie," Linda whispered outside the keyhole. Craig opened the door. "Okay, you can come in." Linda entered and saw that Craig was nearly done unpacking his suitcase. When did he turn into such a goody-goody? "Do you have a plan?" he asked. "Maybe I do and maybe I don't," said Linda. "Out with it." "I saw singing flowers in the kitchen. We take some so we can breathe underwater. Then we jump into the loch and swim to Nessie's grotto." "That's dumber than I expected from you," said Craig. "You don't even know where Nessie's grotto is. Remember, we only got there last time because Nessie took us there." "We could take the net from the shed and catch her again," said Linda. "She let herself get caught last time because she wanted that blue stone from my pocket. What do we have for her this time?" said Craig. Linda had a sudden inspiration. "Your gold coins. Mrs. Carmichael said they were cursed or blessed. She said your coins will find their way back to Nessie's grotto." "You leave the coins out of this. They're mine." Craig looked defensively at his bottom dresser drawer. "If you didn't intend to use them, you'd have left them in Birmingham in the safe deposit box like Dad told you." Linda knew she had him. "I didn't bring them just to give them back," said Craig. "You brought them for their magic," said Linda. "Maybe I did, and maybe I didn't," said Craig. He knew that line annoyed Linda. "I'll talk to you again when you are prepared to be reasonable," said Linda. Anna's father was Severe Thornburn. He wore his wavy blonde hair tucked behind his ears. Linda heard her father whisper to his mother, "Looks like a hippie." Sphere Thornburn confirmed their suspicions when he refused to talk about his office job. Before they sat down to dinner, Mr. Thornburn pulled out his pocket knife, flipped open the screwdriver, and tightened the knob on the dining room door. Linda's mother watched, worried. "Aren't you afraid you'll break it?" she asked. Mr. Thornburn ignored her. "Thank you," said Mrs. Carmichael. "I've been meaning to do that for years, but every time I come into the dining room, my hands are full of food." Mr. Thorburn chuckled. "What brings you to Scotland?" asked Mrs. Carmichael. Well, we will see, said Mr. Thorburn. I hope to record Nessie. People all over the world are waiting to hear what Nessie sounds like. Father, said Anna, tossing her long curly hair. How are you going to record Nessie? Asked Mrs. Carmichael as she served stewed rhubarb. Mr. Thorburn took a deep breath. I'm going to dangle my hydrophone about 10 meters down into Loch Ness and hope she swims by. Mrs. Carmichael gave him a quizzical look. Do you have a better idea? He asked. You could swim down and look for her, said Philin Macduff. He proudly carved the big salmon he'd caught just a few hours before while fishing in Loch Ness. You're joking, right? Said Mr. Thorburn. Certainly not, said Philin Macduff. Just ask Craig and Linda here. I do not joke about our Nessie. I'm really not interested in hearing any more about Nessie, said Craig and Linda's father. I came here to meet clients. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a colored whistle. Here's my calling card. Get it? Calling card. It's got my name and phone number stamped on it and a whistle for calling. He guffawed at his own joke. Nobody else did. I don't want to hear about Nessie either, said Anna. I came along to hear Portia. She started to sing, White looks gray in any gray light. Not again, said her father. That's such a shallow philosophy. I don't see why you want to repeat it. Linda thought it was exciting, but she didn't want to get into an argument and upset her parents. I've been thinking of changing my hairstyle, she said, as casually as she could. How does Portia wear her hair? Portia has a braid on one side and short hair on the other, said Anna enthusiastically. She looks really cool. I could do your hair like that. Thank you anyway, young lady, said Linda's mother. Please don't bring scissors anywhere near my daughter's head. She has such lovely hair. I don't want her to have a faddish hairstyle that she'll hate in a few months, and that will take years to grow out. Linda thought about it. A braid on one side and short hair on the other sounded pretty silly, but if a famous rock star did it,